that this is on the recording at least. Right, let me stop the transcription. Right, so unfortunately, as I had said earlier, we've had a bit of an issue with ARC today, and I was unenrolled from all my ARC courses. I believe that I will be enrolled back onto them by tomorrow. I will share the assignment prep with you on ARC tomorrow as well. And then obviously, yeah, I'll just make sure that I've uploaded these workbooks that have the answers in them. I wanted to make sure that yeah, you see the answers. I don't really care if you go directly to the answers. I think we see each other every 2 weeks. I think it's quite tough to try and wait 2 weeks when you've worked out these answers. Please also just say, please note how the application bits are here. These also start pointing to the assignment. And I know that this learning unit might not necessarily be in the, sorry, I've got to sneeze in a second. Hold on. Didn't want to have you hear me or see me sneeze, so I thought I'd be a coward and leave. Yeah, so everything here is geared towards the exam, also guidance in terms of your assignments, etc. Please look at the application bits in here. This, as I had said, had taken quite a bit of time. Okay, so in terms of the one thing that I wanted to cover for the rest of Learning Unit 1, it was this bit here, and I'm just running back to it. So it is here. So one of the things you'll see that often happens is that people, when they get asked, is this strategy appropriate for a particular company? Evaluate the strategy. What people often will do is they'll have their own opinion on evaluating the relevance, the appropriateness, whether this is a strategy, whether this company should follow. When you are told to evaluate the strategy, and be careful of this in the exam. How's it, JD? Be careful of this in the exam. Please make sure that you use these criteria to evaluate the strategy. This is essential because every year when I mark these assignments, I run into difficulties with having to give people 0 out of that aspect of the assignment. No problem, JD, whatsoever. So please just remember that we've got these criteria. Insofar as the criteria are concerned, I want to just take us to the criteria. So in terms of evaluating, yeah, as I said, these are the criteria. Insofar as the criteria are concerned, I think the way you would answer this question in the assignment, and I would have done it in the recording as well, tell me what the criterion is, and then also tell me a brief introduction of what that is, and then assess the company based on that particular criterion. So the first criterion is appropriateness. In terms of an appropriate strategy, I think it is whether a strategy makes sense from an organization's internal perspective. So whether it makes sense in terms of its vision, its strengths and weaknesses, what it has, its resources, etc. Also, whether it makes sense in terms of the external environment. So what often happens is we, in particular during times where money gets a lot tighter, where fuel prices go up, for example, people start buying smaller engine vehicles. So if you're going to launch a brand new 5-liter V8 during times of economic hardship, it doesn't make sense. So from an external perspective, that might not be the appropriate thing to do. So logic is important from an appropriateness perspective. Does it make sense in terms of what we are internally and what we stand for and what the realities in the external environment is? And you'll see that the things to consider, whether it makes sense in terms of what the key success factors in the environment are, and then also whether it allows us to maximize what we have internally from a capabilities perspective. And does it fit our stakeholder expectations as well? The tools we use to do this is the SWOT matrix. The SWOT matrix is essentially just bringing together the elements of the SWOT analysis and then creating strategies around those. So I had taken it out. Didn't really want to discuss it because people get bogged down in this. You don't have to give me a big discussion on these elements, or you don't even have to refer to these elements in the assignment. Right. The second one there, sorry guys, I've got a bit of a cold, so please give me a second. Right. So the second one is feasibility. Now, this is really just whether this specific strategy is potentially possible for us to actually make happen. Can we actually carry out this strategy? I might have mentioned in the first lecture how Mercedes-Benz is, because of the nature of the Chinese onslaught on vehicles. Sorry, guys, hold on a second. Because of the nature of the Chinese onslaught on the auto industry, how Mercedes has decided that they don't want to be branded as a luxury brand anymore. The question, though, is does that make sense? Does it make sense in terms of can they carry out this proposed strategy? How will they all of a sudden start building vehicles that aren't considered luxurious? So, from a feasibility perspective, does it make sense in a company that has invested so much in terms of its brand, on the resources that it's available to try and downscale? No problem. How's it, goodness? I hope you're well. Yeah, I think a couple of people in particular with the weather around are struggling to log on. No problem whatsoever. Goodness. Guys, and then just also, does it make sense in terms of our potential customers? Does it make sense in terms of the industry? How would we view Mercedes? Can Mercedes keep their luxury Mercedes-Benz brand? Or do they need to do what Kentucky Fried Chicken, and most of you might not even remember that KFC before they rebranded was Kentucky Fried Chicken, whether they can do that kind of rebranding and call themselves the MBs into the future. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. And then, obviously, guys, will it give us a competitive advantage? Will Mercedes Benz be able to get into the same market where the Chinese brands are operating? And you can see the specific questions to ask there. The third criterion is desirability. So, in terms of the strategy that we use, does it make sense in terms of what we want to achieve in terms of the short term as well as the long term? Will it take us to our short term and long term objectives? Is it appropriate in terms of our broader mission? Is it desirable in terms of our broader mission? Because that is what we want to achieve in the long term. And here it is really about exposing the company to risk. How much risk is there in Mercedes Benz not being luxurious to the company itself? Does it not make them vulnerable against attacks from other competitors that will also want to be in the same industry as them? Because all of a sudden you're competing with Mercedes Benz. And then also, is it appropriate in terms of timing to do this? Are there other issues at play? And again, thinking of what is happening with fuel prices, do you launch a brand new big sized engine when people are looking for more fuel efficient options? Consistency, to me, it's logic. It is whether everything makes sense in terms of everything else. We know that consistency will start with your vision and what the vision statement stands for and represents. The mission statement, your value statement. Does it make sense in terms of those specific strategic intent issues? And then if it's not consistent with what this brand stands for, what the company's vision is, then obviously this is not the right strategy to follow. Validity means you look at what stats and numbers are out there. So if you are going to launch a brand new vehicle into a market, you would have spent time looking at numbers of potential customers, the income levels of those potential customers, the existing market and what market saturation has been achieved, who the big players are and what their market shares are. But you will look at the numbers and stats associated to each of those bits that you're investigating. So it's about numbers and stats. And we will know that something is valid is when it's valid is when everything makes sense from a statistical reality of the market as it is right now, from those numbers and stats that we've investigated perspective. Guys, and then attractiveness to stakeholders. I think the reality is we always will look at our stakeholders. We need to look at what the stakeholders' expectations of a particular organization is. Again, if you're a shareholder in Mercedes-Benz, how do you view the fact that they want to not be a luxury brand in the future? If you're an existing customer, how do you view the fact that Mercedes doesn't want to remain a luxury brand? The same with employees, etc., and their suppliers. So that is it. That is the end of Learning Unit 1. Please do yourselves a favor, and it is a reminder about the workbooks. Please work through those workbooks. I will make sure that I have the full version of the workbooks uploaded for you with the answers to the different assessments that there are in here. Please spend time on it, guys. There's a lot of time that has gone into those workbooks. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording there simply because I want to start Learning Unit 2 separately.